Mr. Schneider for 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was listening to my colleague from the other side of the aisle. He was talking about how families they want to be able to go to the grocery store and afford food for their kids. They want to be able to put not just food on the table, but put their kids in clothes and shoes, pay for their health care, for housing. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to share much of the frustration and anger of our constituents watching as the new administration has come in and done a whole host of things, announced a whole litany of actions, but failed to deliver on the key promise of working to lower costs for American families. Costs are going up. In fact, you may have seen the news today. Waffle House just announced that they are putting a 50-cent per egg surcharge because the price of eggs have gone up so much. In fact, in my community in Highland Park, Illinois, a dozen eggs costs $5. A generation ago, President Clinton ran on a campaign built on a very simple axiom. It's the economy, stupid. Well, what was true in 1992 is just as true in 2024 in the last election and is true today. The American people want their representatives working and focused on the economy. They want us to be trying to create quality, well-paying jobs, provide more opportunities for themselves and a better future for their children. They want us to lower costs and raise the standard of living for all Americans. Beyond economic growth and opportunity, they want us to make sure that we're helping to keep our communities healthy and safe, and that we're focused on a strong national security and a strong national defense. That's the charge voters gave us here in Congress and gave to the new president. And it's hard to believe that we're only 2 weeks into the second Trump administration, and already the early onslaught of chaos, confusion, and manufactured crisis has been stunning. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. In fact, folks at home are telling me how they feel just this onslaught is nonstop, which I guess is the point of what the administration is trying to do. We're going to focus tonight on a couple of issues. I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues. We are a part of the New Democratic Coalition. The New Democrats are the moderate Democrats, 110 strong, who are focused on serving our people an economy that is lifting up their lives. We're focused on lowering costs. We're focused on making life better for all Americans. If we look at the last couple of weeks, just 3 things. I can't touch on everything, but I'll touch on 3 specific things. A little more than a week ago, the administration issued a memo threatening to freeze $3 trillion of spending across the board. It was confusing. It had no clarity of what specifically or how specifically anything would be frozen, who would be included, who would be excluded. Our phones started ringing off the hooks. Preschools providing early education to our children, giving them that head start to get ahead in life, we're saying they might have to close. Programs like Meals for Wheels by seniors were struggling. Infrastructure projects. In my district, a project that it was decades in the making and had received a $19 million grant from the Department of Transportation was threatened. Healthcare providers didn't know what they were going to continue to do. First responders were concerned. There was an extraordinary outcry from across the country. And on Monday, the administration started backtracking. By Tuesday, they had pulled it all back, the memo back altogether. Chaos, confusion, manufactured crisis. Just this past weekend, President Trump announced 25% tariffs on our 2 most important trading partners, Mexico and Canada, as well as 10% tariffs on China. Across the board, the Wall Street Journal issued a op-ed, the dumbest trade war in history. This is not a Democratic rag. This is the Wall Street Journal calling it the dumbest trade war in history. And evidently, the president got the message because within just a couple of days, he paused the threat against our trading partners in Canada and Mexico. And today, for the past week, our phones have been ringing off the hooks again, this time talking about the fact that an individual who didn't receive a single vote, a billionaire who controls the largest or one of the largest social media platforms, who would benefit from having access to data, classified, confidential, personal data of Americans, was in fact given unfettered access to that confidential personal information of Americans. Their pay information, their social security numbers, health care information, all of this is now in the hands of Elon Musk, who no one in this country voted for. No one empowered him to try to control our government. A man who is positioned to reap billions of dollars off the personal information of the American people and gain his own personal power is now having access to that information. We need to make sure that this stops. Those are just 3 examples of the chaos, crisis, and confusion sowed by this administration in just 2 weeks. And yet none of this has focused on bringing down the cost of eggs or the cost of living for the American people. That's why we're here tonight, calling on the administration, calling on our colleagues in Congress to work with the Democrats, to work together to focus on the economy, to make life easier for all American families, to help families get ahead and lift their children up for a better future. So now I'd like to call on some of my other colleagues. I'm first going to yield to my friend Salud Carbajal from the great state of California.
Thank you, Chairman Snyder. I am proud to stand here as Vice Chair of the New Democrat Coalition to make it clear that we are here, 5 weeks into this new Congress, fighting to end the chaos of this new administration and get us back to what the American people elected us to do: lowering costs, promoting safer communities, and actually governing. The American people elected us to tackle the cost of living, not cut public education. The American people elected us to lower the price of groceries, not declare trade wars with allies that will raise those prices for Americans even further. Mr. Speaker, the American people elected us to ensure their communities are protected, not give billionaires backdoors into their personal data. I want the American people to see this. This room is empty. The majority has gone home for tonight. We have not even tackled one bill this whole week to deal with the high costs. This is a co-equal branch of government. But my colleagues seem content to give up our congressional power of the purse. Where is the so-called party of law and order? That party is willing to look the other way on enforcing the law, like the laws that protect funding approved by Congress, into law. The self-proclaimed party of law and order is willing to let chaos reign, and thousands of Americans see the funding they rely on to get frozen, their benefits put on the chopping block, and even their jobs eliminated by what? An unelected billionaire. My constituents are crying out for us to do something, and I want to assure them we are doing something. We are here even as they get ready to turn off the lights, working to craft legislation that will block right-wing activists and the use of our power in this chamber to halt all the efforts to deny the law and promote chaos over order. New Dems are the tip of the spear. We will fight ill-conceived tariffs, plot to raise your taxes, to pay for tax cuts for who? The richest people in our country. Fight invasions of your privacy. And of course, we will fight to deliver what we hear every single day: lower the cost of living, make our communities safer, and stop the chaos and gridlock. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank Salud Carbajal from California, and he touched on a critical thing. The Republicans are literally trying to take money from hardworking families to pay for tax cuts for those who need it the least, for billionaires like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, or for the president's family. The president threatened to put tariffs on our trading partners, Canada and Mexico. That is a tax on American families. We are not going to let it stand. That's why the outcry is important. That's why it's important we are here tonight. I'm proud to yield now to a dear friend from Florida, Congressman Darren Soto.
Thank you, my dear friend from Illinois, Mr. Schneider. Mr. Speaker, you may have heard this, but inflation was one of the biggest issues in this last election. Let's take you a little ways back here. We saw during the height of the pandemic, it caused global inflation. Supply chains broke down, production broke down, and every country felt it, even the US. Inflation at one point rose as high as 9%. But over many months and many years, and through efforts to boost production, to improve supply chains, to improve our infrastructure, to get back to normal, we saw it go down to as low as 2.4% in September of 2024. 2.4%. Groceries and housing specifically have been a challenge. When President Trump took office, inflation was still under 3%. Still under 3%. Hundreds of executive orders have been signed. Some divisive, some illegal, but few, if any, address lowering costs for the American people. Many may have even increased costs. First, the tariffs, chaos against our own allies. And President Trump admitted, well, this may cause some pain for Americans. Don't we remember he ran on lowering costs? Or maybe that was just a joke to get elected. Because now suddenly we're going to have to accept some pain because of tariffs that he's trying to impose on the American people. Tariffs equal inflation. Tariffs equal taxes on American consumers. And then immigration. You know, we had a workforce shortage for many years. And then over time, through legal programs like temporary protective status and parole in other areas, booming states, particularly Central Florida, South Florida, and Tampa Bay, benefited by these legal programs. So when you look at housing, which there's a huge shortage, 30–40% of the industry relies on immigrant labor. And that's after trying to get every American we can to work to help build housing. Also with commercial real estate, the same thing. And so what do we see? Food prices already starting to creep back up, and housing prices, same deal. Eggs. Gosh, remember, I can't afford eggs, bro. That was like a huge deal during the election. We saw eggs down to about $2 only a couple months ago. Now, $7, almost $8. Back in the day, it was, oh, it's President Biden. Now we have MAGA supporters going into intimate detail on the bird flu. Funny. Last time that happened, that wasn't the explanation at all. It was, oh, Biden, this and that. And now, science and thoughtful answers to explain inflation that's happening under President Trump now. And then this was the craziest thing, Mr. Speaker. Apparently, it's dishonoring, folks, for us to even talk about how these policies will raise costs right up again that went down to as low as 2.4% a few months ago, still under 3% when President Trump was sworn in. But it could get worse if the Trump tax scam 2.0 gets passed. The Inflation Reduction Act, it allowed for prescription drug savings for all seniors under Medicare, a cap of $2,000 a year. Most seniors were paying up into this year, $3,500 was the cap last year. There was no cap before that, Mr. Speaker, and they're paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or more in out-of-pocket expenses. Now, seniors won't pay more than $2,000 a year for their prescription drugs. But if we see the majority take a sledgehammer to the IRA, that savings goes away for seniors across the nation. Just when they got it, that savings, lowering costs for our seniors, it could go away. And then the Obamacare subsidies. Oh my gosh, have we not Seeing the majority learn, have Republicans not learned from now? First of all, there's no plan. There's no alternative. It's been over 10 years. And by the way, since then, we've seen states like Florida have the largest Obamacare exchange in the nation. 4.6 million Floridians from President Trump's home state, more than any other state in the union, get their health care through Obamacare, through the ACA exchange. Do you know what happens if the Obamacare subsidies go away, Mr. Speaker? A family of four will see their health care increase by $8,000 to $10,000 a year. That's a lot of eggs. That's a lot of costs that people are going to have to shoulder that will cripple families. And you know what else is going to happen? Then we're going to have more people without health insurance. And then it's going to cost taxpayers through the emergency room. And this is not how you make America healthy again, Mr. Speaker. It's how you make America sicker. So why would anybody want to eliminate these health care savings? What could possibly be so important? Can you believe it's to cut taxes for billionaires? So my constituents, $8,000 to $10,000 in increases in their health insurance. Seniors across the nation who have a $2,000 cap on prescription drugs, they're going to have to, little old ladies who are trying to pay out of their pockets for prescription drugs. Our seniors, our men and our women, they're going to have to forego those savings because the top 1%, the top 0.1%, well, they need more tax cuts. Are you serious? Is this what people voted for? Heck no. And the last time we saw that happen, we saw this chamber flip quicker than you could possibly imagine. It was sad. It didn't have to be that way. The record is clear. President Trump inherited a strong economy from President Biden. I'm going to repeat that. President Trump inherited a strong economy from President Biden. High growth, big job numbers, inflation below 3%, 2.9% to be exact, as of the end of January. So here's a simple measure we'll see over the next couple months. Will costs go up or will they go down? Will grocery prices go up or will they go down? Will housing prices go up or will they go down? Democrats stand ready to work in a bipartisan manner to keep our economy running strong. This is the second closest House in the history of the nation. There are 3 votes separating Democrats from Republicans in this chamber. Actually, 1 vote right now because of the folks who had to go on to the Trump administration. So we can easily work together to resolve these things, or you go it alone in some big reconciliation package for billionaires, and then we see what happens in these very easily tracked measures. But most of all, people will see it when they want to buy a home, when they want to go to the grocery store, when they want to go on vacation down to Orlando, which we welcome everybody to come to, or if they want to buy a new car. All these things, Americans are going to be watching. We need to work together. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. And let me now turn it over to a colleague from the great state of Virginia, also a member of the leadership team for the New Democrat Coalition, my dear friend, Jennifer McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the chair of the New Dems Coalition, Brad Schneider, for organizing this special order hour so that we can talk about the Trump, Vance, Musk administration's erratic and senseless attacks on the federal government, their federal hiring freeze, their ill-conceived and short-sighted actions in the first 2 weeks, and how they are actually going to raise costs for the American people, not lower costs for the American people. You've heard about the tariffs that were on and then off, paused, except against China. Before the tariffs were announced, I was meeting with local leaders across my district, from the rural southern end to the urban northern end. My farmers were worried about the trade war that the tariffs would unleash and how it would decimate the largest industry in Virginia, which is agriculture. The seniors across the district were worried about the impact that rescinding efforts to reduce prescription drug costs would have on their health care bills. Other seniors were worried about how a tax on energy efficiency programs that they use to weatherize their homes and reduce their electric bills would lead to higher utility bills. We've seen whole flocks of poultry farms, the chickens on poultry farms, having to be put down, which will impact the cost of eggs that so many people supposedly voted this election because of their worry about. We have seen hardworking federal employees whose jobs are at risk, who fear whether or not they will receive their pension if they take this illegal offer to buy them out. And if they read the fine print of the documents that just now are starting to be given to them, they'll find that they just might. I don't think any of that lowers cost. What it does is throw the American government, which so many people rely on, into chaos, grinding it to a halt, and that was the point. But what we're going to find is that that does not lower costs. It hurts the American people. And the New Democrat Coalition will fight it every step of the way. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, we heard in the last half hour or so people talking about the rising cost of eggs. And they talked about the fact that there is a bird flu epidemic that is devastating our flocks. The Centers for Disease Control is being cut by the Trump administration at a time when we need their work more than ever to try to make sure that this horrible epidemic comes to an end and costs come down for American families. Thing is, Trump and the House Republicans are plotting cuts to a whole host of programs across our government, programs providing services to seniors and veterans with health care, programs feeding hungry families and their children, and more. And all of these cuts are simply to pay for tax cuts for their billionaire friends like Elon Musk and others. The New Dems will continue fighting on behalf of the American people to cut inflation, to improve the lives of hard-working families, and make our communities safer and our national security stronger. If Trump's tax on American consumers with his tariffs goes through on Canada and Mexico, American consumers are going to see a 25% increase on many essentials, as well as things like cars and appliances, just taking the trip to the grocery. While Trump is waging war on American savings and bank accounts, the New Dems will continue to fight to lower inflation and cut costs for hardworking families. And by giving Elon Musk and his minions unfettered access to American citizens' personal information, he is putting at risk Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, Head Start, so much other information. The New Dems will continue to work with our colleagues in the Democratic caucus on legislation to prevent unlawful access to this information. We are prepared to stand strong on behalf of the American people. We are prepared to stay focused on the economy and do everything we can to make people's lives easier, to make their future and their children's future better, and to preserve our dear country. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Does the gentleman have a motion?
I do. Mr. Speaker, I move the House now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.